Shalom to all. We are starting our special course, a special study. It's a lifetime study. The study of the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life, the book of the Tree of Life, was written originally by, maybe it's better to say authored, originally by Rabbi Isaac Lurie, the greatest Kabbalist of the 16th century in Tzfat. Why did I say author? Because he did not write it. He was not able to write it. The person who wrote it was Rabbi Chaim Vital, that he was the one that collected the words of Rabbi Isaac Lurie, the teachings. He was authorized to write it down for the next generations. Now, let me explain the background of how important this text is. When we are talking about the study of Kabbalah, when we speak about the sources for that study, it's everywhere, which means a Kabbalist will tell you that the source is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. The source is other books of the Tanakh, which means the prophets, and you will see that a lot of the, or let's say all the topics of Kabbalah are being discussed, but in a concealed way, all over the ancient text. However, if you're not trained, which means your mind is not trained, you will not be able to see that in a million years. You'll be able to read the text again and again and again, and you will not see what the Kabbalists see in the text. Your mind, your brain, your consciousness need to be trained in order to understand the special language of the Kabbalah. So, all the Kabbalistic teachings are there in the Tanakh, in the 24 books of the Bible, what is called. It is also in the older book, the book of formation, Sefer Yetzirah, which is authored, according to tradition, by Abraham the Patriarch. It was written down only in the 1st century, according to scholars, but the Jewish tradition says that comes from Abraham the Patriarch, okay? But you read it and you won't understand because it's written like a riddle. And you understand there's a text about cosmology, about the structure of the universe, but what does it mean? Okay? So for many, many years, the concept was that only people that studied thoroughly all the books of the Tanakh and then all the commentaries, which is in the Mishnah and the Midrashim, and later on the next layer was the Talmud, and the next layers were all the explanations that came after the Talmud. When you study all of that and you know all of it, if you're really committed to spiritual learning, you will start seeing the language. You'll start to read in between the lines, and you will see all of those codes that speak about the creation, that speak about all the secrets. How would you see that? So Rabbi Ashlag, and whoever does not know, Rabbi Ashlag, the founder of the modern movement of learning Kabbalah, and he started that project in the early 20s when he leaves Warsaw, where he lived, and he comes to Jerusalem in order to change history. That's his goal, to change history. And what is the goal? How do you change history? By connecting the people, not the scholars, also the people who do not have deep background of Kabbalah, connecting them to the teachings of Kabbalah. So how could that be established? How could that be achieved? And the answer is, and that's, again, basically the understanding of this, what we're doing over here. He chose, of course, the most important work of all the times, which is the Tree of Life of the Arizal, of Rabbi Isaac Lurie. Why? As I said before, whoever studied all the ancient texts, only when the person reached a very high level of awareness, spiritual awareness, like being a saint almost, he was able to read in between the lines, and he was able to see and to reach that level that is called hasaga. Hasaga means perceiving. What does it mean, perceiving? Which means the ability to connect the dots and to see through your mind how the universe is structured. You know, like you're looking right now, let's say if you're watching the lesson, you're looking right now on a screen. Okay? What do you see? You see letters in Hebrew, whatever. You see stuff that is on the screen. Okay? But is that what is in the computer? No. In the computer, there are encoded messages in computer language. Somebody that is really, really, really deep into the computer language, he can decipher the matrix. He can look at the screen and see the mathematical equations behind what we see on the screen. Okay, he sees how it's really stored on the computer. Okay, a Kabbalist, a real Kabbalist, a Mekubal, is somebody that Rabbi Ashlag explains, he's looking at reality and he can see the matrix. He can see not just the physical appearance that every human brain, most human brains can see, the colors, the shapes, and even the division into objects and creatures and all kinds of stuff like this. And phenomena, it's like sunlight or moonlight or electrical light. A real Kabbalist had the ability to see the code behind all of those perceptions. Okay, so for him, he would see how is this structured, where is it coming from, the whole story of the evolution, how that evolved into what you see right now. That is what a Kabbalist can see. Okay? However, the Kabbalists wrote about it in Sefer Yetzirah, but as I said, if you don't have a Kabbalistic training, you see a riddle. Later on, there was another work done about it, that is the Zohar. And the Zohar does explain about the code and how the code is structured. However, the Zohar is writing it in a very encoded language. As I said before, if you're not accustomed to the language, you will never be able to understand what the Zohar is talking about. It. You'll get some idea, but you won't see the code. You won't be able to decipher the matrix. Even if you study a lot, you will always see a partial picture and you won't be able to see the whole thing. Why? Because the ancient thought that they knew that if that will be written too obvious, in ancient times there were a lot of people who were seeking powers. They knew that the metaphysical power is stronger than any financial power, warlike power, political power. This is the highest power in the universe. So in ancient times, until not a few centuries ago, people were willing, in order to achieve power, they were willing to invest a lot of time and energy in order to decipher the codes of the universe, because they knew it was a matrix. They knew there's a power. They knew that there is a code, and they were willing to spend all the time and invest all what they had in order to achieve that. For the fear of those people, that were dealing, in old times, people were investing a lot of time in witchcraft, whatever name you call it, alchemy. All of that was basically people. It was not nonsense they were dealing with. They really wanted to achieve the power, and they knew there's a power behind it. Along the last few centuries, humanity went a huge transformation. People became so materialistic that normal, sane, capable people do not believe that that code exists. And therefore, the real, powerful, knowledgeable people will never give an effort in order to expand that knowledge because it looks like superstition. And therefore, Rabbi Ashlag is teaching us, therefore you are allowed to teach Kabbalah nowadays because there is kind of a safety valve that people that are looking for power, people are looking to control others using the knowledge and the wisdom of Kabbalah, they will never be able to do it because they won't even think it's possible. They will be busy making money, political power, accumulating knowledge, so they become professors in universities. They will never ever think that the knowledge and the wisdom of Kabbalah can really give them superpowers. So a lot of people are looking for superpowers, but they don't even understand where the superpowers can come from. So that era started around the 16th century, and therefore when Rabbi Isaac Lurie is revealing himself in Tzfat, we're talking about the late 60s and early 70s of the 16th century, in Tzfat, the capital of the Upper Galilee in the northern part of Israel. At that time, there was a big Jewish community over there, relatively. A lot of sages, the biggest sages of that generation, in all aspects of Judaism, including Kabbalah, they lived in Tzfat. So the environment was very hospitable to those ideas, and a lot of people wrote historical texts, like we're talking about a real historical revolution of the way Kabbalah is being taught in the world. Those schools existed in Tzfat. Rabbi Isaac Lurie, that was born in Jerusalem, however, his father passed away when he was 8 years old. They had no way of living, him and his mother. So they were invited by his uncle, his mother's brother, to Cairo, Egypt. Rabbi Isaac Lurie's uncle was was responsible for the local IRS. It was privatized those days, and he grew up in his household, and he had all the time to study. So he reached very high spiritual levels in Egypt. His teacher, the Radbaz, Rabbi David ben Zimra, was one of the greatest Kabbalists of those generations. And then he was told, that's what he tells, that by Elijah the prophet, who was his teacher, he was told to move to Tzfat, and the time has come that he will reveal what he knows to that generation. He comes to Tzfat, and as I said, Tzfat was the world center of the greatest Kabbalists in the world of that time. And when he comes to Tzfat, and he's young, he's maybe in his mid-30s, around that time, and nobody looks at his direction because nobody knew about him. And it took him a while till the great Kabbalists of Tzfat realized how great he is, basically that he is the greatest in the world for so many centuries, since Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, some 1500 years earlier, 1400 years earlier. And then the Arizal is teaching his wisdom, which means he's bringing down his perception. And as the Arizal was saying, they were not those great scholars like the Arizal. They did not have an analytical mind like somebody who knows math or algebra. They had a perception. When they spoke about the structure of the universe, they simply saw it with their minds. It was laid in front of them. They were just describing the structure of the universe the way they saw it. And the structure of the universe, since they taught us, according to the Zohar, that nothing is here just out of nowhere. It's like the universe haven't been created this way from the beginning. In the beginning, the world started from something totally else. And whatever you see, if it is a bird, a heavenly body, like a moon or a sun or a galaxy or whatever you see, whatever phenomenon you see, weather, whatever happens, there is a long chain of evolution that brought this till you experience it and you see it. Nothing comes out of nowhere. And everything starts with the same beginning. All of this is encoded in the Torah. However, the Nachmanides, the Ramban, the Nachmanides was the founder of the modern schools of Kabbalah. We're talking about the 13th century. He renewed that studying of Kabbalah in the open, although it existed in earlier generations. Especially if you see the Dead Sea Scrolls, you can see a lot of stuff of that material. But during the days after the destruction of the temple, all of that stuff went into the underground. Okay? Now, the Nachmanides said, if you read the book of Genesis chapter 1 about the creation, don't you ever dare to think that whatever is written there is really describing what happened. It's just a very shallow kind of cover up for the story of the creation. Don't you ever in simple way try to understand what's written in chapter 1 in Genesis, because the whole story of the creation was much more sophisticated, as we're going to see. So Rabbi Isaac Lurie is teaching the story of the creation of the universe and the whole story of the evolution till every aspect that we know with our five senses, and that these teachings are being written down by his disciple Rabbi Chaim Vital. The name of the book is The Tree of Life, and there are some other books that knowledge is being written. However, even when Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote that book, there was a fear that people can abuse the information for power, not for the right reasons. So when he wrote that knowledge, he basically messed up the order here and there, which means only people who really had the perception, the Hasaga, could know when things are not in order. But if somebody is learning just from power hunger, because he wanted to do some witchcraft, he wanted to just do some alchemy and have some physical gains of honor, power, or money, he will never be able to see that the things are not written properly, and he will make the mistake, and he will never get to achieve the power because he'll get into a problem. Okay, so therefore, all of those years printing those books of the Tree of Life, it was printed, I think, the first time in the 16th century, and for next generations, we see that the influence of this book and the other writings of the Arizal, where the influence was amazing about all what is called Jewish theology. The meditations of the prayers, the belief systems, everything became so much more refined and sophisticated because of all of that tremendously important wisdom that finally took the Zohar and all the other texts that were written later on, and the whole books of the Bible, the Tanakh, and put it all together in one coherent system. Okay, of course, the greatest Kabbalists after that, if we're talking about the Sephardic Kabbalah, if we're talking about the Hasidic Kabbalah, if we're talking about the schools based on the Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, all the other schools of Kabbalah that came after that generation, all of them were based on this book. However, as I said, if you read any Kabbalistic teachings of the greatest Hasidic teachers, like the Baal Shem Tov, like the Chabad teachings, like the teachings of the other great rabbis, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and other great teachers of the Hasidic movement and the non-Hasidic movement, the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, the great teachers from Lithuania, Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, all of those, it's like if you don't know the tree of life and the Arizal, you have no idea what they're talking about. The same thing about the Rashash, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, and all the disciples of the school that he established all over the Sephardic world. Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, all of those great scholars, they were very well versed with those texts that Rabbi Chaim Vital brought to the world. However, as I said again, they were not written clearly with a purpose. Comes Rabbi Ashlag, and in his generation, we're talking about the beginning of the 20th century, something weird happened. All of that studying of science, math, physics, chemistry, the ego of the scientists was so big, and the rest of the world believed them, even most of the Jewish people, that science can solve humanity's problems. Just one of the famous examples, that one of the greatest physicists ever, Max Planck, he lived we're talking about a story that happened in the late 19th century. And he wants to go to university. And his uncle was a great scientist in a great university in Munich, Germany. And he comes to his uncle, he says, "Uncle, I want to study physics." And the uncle is saying, "I know you, my nephew, that you're brilliant. But I'll tell you something, in physics, there's nothing left to be discovered. We know everything. Maybe you should learn philology, where maybe you'll learn about foreign languages. Maybe you can find an ancient language that nobody interpreted, and you'll get a name by discovering the meaning of those ancient lost languages." Luckily, Max Planck didn't listen to his uncle. And when he started to study physics, soon enough, he came into the world of subatomic particles, of which science at that time had no idea. They thought they know everything, which the job basically didn't even start. But people believed the ego was so big, we know everything, and soon enough, not long, it won't take us solo, 10, 20 years, we know everything, and we solve every problem of humanity. A lot of Jews believe in that also. So all that stuff of spirituality and mysticism and Kabbalah was so neglected. People didn't really think it has any value. Oh, it's just like nonsense of ancients that really didn't know. And they covered up their ignorance by all kinds of weird texts. On one hand, that was a big disaster, because studying Kabbalah, really studying Kabbalah, almost perished by the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. If you read the biggest scholar at that time that established the study, Gershon Sholem, that he established the study of Kabbalah in Tel Aviv University in the early years of the 20th century, and he was saying it's like it's a dead language. There are no people who really understand Kabbalah. It's like over. And then Rabbi Ashlag comes to Jerusalem, and I know it's like Gershon Sholem couldn't stand him, because Rabbi Ashlag really went against him. If somebody came that really understood that stuff. So Gershon Sholem, when he wrote about Rabbi Ashlag, he was writing terrible stuff about him, which is like showing that he simply, as a scholar, he didn't really understand Kabbalah, because you cannot understand Kabbalah just as a scholar. You have to practice. The same way you cannot learn about horse riding just from reading, or riding bicycles just from reading. You have to go on the horse, on the bicycles, and you have to try till you do it. You can't just read about it, upon it, or on it. You have to experience it. Kabbalah is a wisdom that you must experience in order to understand. If you don't experience, you will never understand. So what do? You blame others that they don't understand. Why? Because you didn't understand. Okay? We don't take that. I hope that everybody learning it is not holding that idea anymore. Meanwhile, more than a century later, exactly a century later, in Jerusalem, we're starting to study the study of the Tree of Life, because, as Rabbi Ashlag said, because people around the world do not really think that Kabbalah will give you superpowers, so we don't see people with power hunger to study Kabbalah. So we can teach Kabbalah in the open, on YouTube, on the internet. Everybody can buy the books. When I was young and I started to learn Kabbalah, most of the books available today were not available. And now there's so many books, so many teachings that are available and free. Why? Only the people that the heart is willing to really self-change, transform themselves, they will come and study. Rabbi Ashlag is saying, do not think that this is an easy study. You have to repeat the study again and again and again. You have to repeat the terms and the words. It's a language. Because if you do not really know by heart all the terms of that language of volume 1 and volume 2, when you come to volume 3, you get so confused you won't be able to continue with volume 4. So, what are these volumes? When Rabbi Ashlag started to make his commentary to this study, first of all, he took the original words of the Arizal, written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, and he reprocessed it the way it should be. It's written perfectly in order, because there's no fear that somebody is going to abuse the text. So you will see that the texts are not the way it's laid in the Tree of Life of the Arizal. The text is reorganized, and what you see in the page in front of you, you see that in the middle of the page you have 2 lines with bolder letters. Those bolder letters, they are the words of the Arizal in the book The Tree of Life. These are the original words. Okay? Now, underneath, and that is called the Pnim. Pnim means the inside, the internal knowledge. Now, over that internal knowledge, you cover it up with the explanations. The 2 rows at the bottom, titled with the word Or Pnimi, internal light, These are the interpretations of Rabbi Ashlag, while he explains every word like explaining a language. Now, I've sent you a text with English translation. I'm not going to use this text. It is for you just to get the idea what the text is about. Remember that every translation is a commentary. The moment you're starting to teach the commentary, you're already losing huge amount of information, especially in Kabbalah, especially in studying any teachings of the Torah. The moment you study it in a foreign language, it's like you simply lost huge amount, the majority of the meanings of the text. Therefore, you want to study that stuff, you must study it in Hebrew, especially the terms. We do not translate the terms into English because any translation into English will kill the original meaning. Because again, English and Hebrew are not from the same realm, are not from the same level. So you cannot, so you can explain, but the main terms we have to learn in Hebrew, and you have to learn how to write down the terms in Hebrew, to learn how to pronounce them, how to understand them, and the meaning, same thing. A lot of people speak fluent Hebrew. Their Hebrew is so lacking because when they study Kabbalah, they don't know what Rabbi Ashlag is teaching. They know the shallow meaning. They don't know all the rich world of associations and metaphysical and spiritual realms that are behind each of these words. So, Rabbi Ashlag's system is like this. First, you read the text of the Arizal. Okay? Then you try to understand it like superficially. And then you read the commentary which explains every term. Okay? At the end of the volume, Rabbi Ashlag will do a summary explaining the topic. Not every word. He will explain the whole, sometimes too many trees, you cannot see the forest. So in the beginning, we study the trees. We study the meaning of every term. At the end, we have a summary. It's called Histaklut Pnimit, inner reflection. That will give us a summary to be able to see the big picture, the forest, after learning to identify each tree by itself. Which means, the same thing when you learn a language, first you learn the letters. After you learn the letters, then you learn how to read the words. And in many languages, there's no connection between the way it's written and the way it's being pronounced, especially in English. Okay? So that is the connection. Therefore, you cannot just, by knowing the letters, it doesn't still mean that you know the language. Okay, so, and you have to understand another thing. We have, as Rabbi Ashlag is saying, to repeat and learn and repeat and learn till we really know by heart all of the meanings of the basic terms. Why? Because, as he said, if you do not really understand the language, you would not understand what is being said. You will think you understand, but you won't, because you don't really know. It's like when let's say you go to court and you listen to what's going on in court. If you do not know legalese, you won't understand most of what's happening over there. And many times you will think you understood, but you won't understand. Okay? So that's as an example. Poor example, but it's close to it. Okay, so first, you have also to understand that in this text that it will take us years to learn. Hopefully, the first volume, it will take us around half a year to complete it. Okay? And then we'll see about the second volume. But you need patience, and you have to, what's important is to experience, learn, and also apply it in your daily life. It is a transformative text, a transformative learning. And again, knowing Hebrew is very, very important over here. So first, let us read the first verse, and I'll try to translate it. You have to understand that this book, The Tree of Life, or it's not just the Tree of Life, because you will see that Rabbi Ashlag brought in many passages, not just from the book of the Tree of Life, but from other books of the Arizal. And he put them together into the text that when you read the text, you think it was written this way because it looks so this flow is so natural. As we read it, we are speaking about the creation of the universe. We're speaking about terms that, you know what, without modern physics, it will be really hard for us to understand. So knowing physics, basic physics, Newtonian physics, some of the stuff of the modern physicists of the 20th century, subatomic physics, quantum mechanics, knowing that will help a lot to understand the Arizal, because his text is speaking about all of that stuff, including relating to the evolution, Darwin's evolution. Darwin's evolution was not complete. He saw something, but his interpretation is very much like an optical illusion. He saw something, he realized there's something, but he did not really understand what's going on, so his interpretation is missing a lot of stuff. We will complete it and turn it into the perfect wisdom of evolution. Okay? The whole creation process was evolving one step to another, as we're going to see. And we're starting really from the beginning. So all of this that we're seeing, it's all like volumes and volumes and volumes. There are 16 volumes of the tree of the teachings of Rabbi Ashlag, the study of the 10 Sephirot, the Talmud Eser Sephirot, 16 volumes. Some of them are huge, okay? And all of them basically are kind of interpretation of the first day of the creation, okay? First day, which is chapter 1 in Genesis. So chapter 1 in Genesis is, you can never learn it superficially, even for kids. Okay. So let us start the Hebrew, and then I'll translate. דע כי טרם שנאצלו הנאצלים ונבראו הנבראים, היה אור עליון פשוט ממלא כל המציאות. You should know that before the emanatees have been emanated and the creatures have been created, all of those words have a meaning. There was a divine light, divine expanding simple light, ממלא כל המציאות, filling up all of reality. ולא היה שום מקום פנוי, and there was no available space בבחינת אוויר ריקני וחלל, as an empty air or empty space, vacuum. אלא היה הכל ממולא מן אור אינסוף פשוט האור. And it was all filled with that endless, simple, expanding light. ולא היה לו לא בחינת ראש ולא בחינת סוף. And he didn't have not a beginning and not an end. אלא הכל היה אור אחד פשוט שווה בהשוואה אחת. It was all one simple expanding light, totally equal in its entirety. והוא הנקרא או אינסוף, and that's called the light of the endless. Okay? So now, let us try to explain what I've just said. Okay? Because the words are there, but we think we understand them, but we do not really understand them. It's like we are missing the programming behind the visible concepts. Okay. So I'm reading at the top of in the Opnimi, the internal light, Opnimi, in the commentary of Rabbi Ashlag. Top right column. צריכים לזכור, we have to remember, שכל חוכמת הקבלה מיוסדת על עניינים רוחניים. The whole wisdom of Kabbalah is based and founded upon spiritual issues. What does it mean, spiritual issues? שאינם תופסים לא מקום ולא זמן. Those spiritual issues are not, that they do not exist in time or in space. They are above time and above space. ואין היעדר ותמורה נוהג בהם כל עיקר. Which means, there's no היעדר. היעדר means in Hebrew disappearance, but it's not. It's like something exists and then it doesn't exist anymore. That's היעדר. תמורה, that is transformation. There's no disexistence or transformation in the spiritual values or entities we are talking about them. Okay? What does it mean? וכל השינויים הנאמרים בחוכמה הזאת, all the changes, we're talking about evolution. By the way, evolution is a Hebrew word. It's called hishtalshelut. It's coming from the word a chain. You know, evolution, there are chains of events, a cascade. Every unit in the chain is one step. So every unit is important because if that unit was not there, it's not a chain anymore. The chain is broken. Okay? It's a chain reaction. That's why it's called in Hebrew hishtalshelut. Hishtalshelut. Hishtalshelut, coming from the word shalshelet, a chain. Okay? One thing evolves from another in a chain reaction. Okay? So when we say that A became B, okay, in our physical mind, if A became B, there's no A anymore. אין זאת אומרת שהבחינה הראשונה נהדרת, A does not stop to exist. הוא מקבל צורה אחרת and receives another shape, B. B does not look like A. אלא השינוי האמור, this said change, הוא עניין תוספת הצורה לבד. This is evolution, but A does not stop to exist when it evolves into B. Okay? B comes as a direct result of A, but in the spiritual universe, A stays. What does it mean? It's like, you know, in the physical universe, let's say you're building a high-rise, 100 stories high-rise. Now you build the first level, okay, and then you build the second level. When you build the second level, the second floor, and now you're finishing the second floor, you're all engulfed by the second floor. Do you see right now the first floor? No, you can't. Does that mean that the first floor does not exist? Of course it exists, because if the first floor does not exist, then the second floor will collapse and shut it down to earth. The second floor necessitates the first one in order to continue to exist. But whoever is in the second floor, he does not see the floor beneath. He can imagine and think, oh, the second floor is the only floor that exists. Forget it, I don't see the first floor and I don't see the third floor. It's only superstition, they don't exist. Same way, that's only an example, every chain, every link in the chain evolves from the previous links. When you are there in that stage, you do not see the previous links, but this link is a result of the previous ones, which means the previous ones must exist, because if they don't exist, that link will not be existing. And this one will necessarily create another link and another link of the chain. All of them are there. It doesn't mean they are aware of each other's existence. Okay? So, any change, any change that is spoken about in the Kabbalistic language is an addition to what happened before. It doesn't come to replace it. It comes to add upon it, like you build one story above another, one floor above another in a high rise, when each one of them carries the ones above it, and is being carried by the stages below. Okay? So every change in our language, if I say it is Sunday, and Sunday came after Shabbat, which means when it's Sunday, Shabbat does not exist anymore. Why? I don't see Shabbat. I don't experience Shabbat. Yes, but Shabbat, my Sunday is all influenced by Shabbat. Without Shabbat, my Sunday was not a Sunday. You cannot disconnect. Shabbat is still there. With all its glory, nothing was gone. It disappeared, not disexist. Okay? So, every change in the language of Kabbalah, in the process of evolution, is just an additional shape, form, in addition of what was before. But the first form, the previous form, does not change. It's there. It's just being covered, okay, by the next one. So the fact that you don't see the past, it does not mean the past does not exist. The past is the base of the present, and the present is the base for the future. Something exists and then it doesn't exist anymore. That's only in the physical perception. Transformation. Okay? Something has transformed. It's not there anymore. What was there was not there anymore. Yeah, it's still there. It's not available to our five senses. It does not mean it's not there. Which means whatever you see is not everything that exists. We can see only a fracture of reality. We can see just the present. Can you imagine? How long is the present, by the way? Scientifically, time is illusion. Why? The present has no width, because the moment it has a width, it has a past, right? It's already the past. Okay? So does it really exist? So many scientists are saying we are basically moving along the vector of time, but time is not changing. We are the ones who are changing, because we cannot prove there is time. And that's one of our biggest illusions of reality. It's like, let's say you sit in a train on the way from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. Okay, you look through the window and you see things are moving. Okay, not in the beginning. In the beginning, most of it is in the tunnels, but okay, you see things moving outside. Does anything move outside? No, you are moving. The one who's sitting in the train, because the train is moving. But what you see through the window is a movement, but it's an illusion. Nothing changed in Jerusalem when you don't see Jerusalem anymore. When you see on the way Emek HaElah, for instance, or you see other places, you see it doesn't mean that they are moving. It means that you are moving along the vector, along the tracks of the train. So the same thing with time. We are moving through time. Time is not changing. The axis is not changing. The vector is not changing, which means the past, it's difficult to understand it, but the past is still there. And the future is already there. Give you an example. I did a research through the last 40 years When I was a teacher in different places around the world, and I was asking people, like, how many of you had a dream that came true hours later, days later, years later? And I found out the average was about 10% of the population. 10% of the population saw stuff that does not exist yet. How could somebody see a reality that does not exist? Unless the future does exist, and sometimes when we sleep, we can have a peep into the picture. What does it look like? It looks like a movie. When you are watching a movie, okay? When we download the movie to our computer, let's say, take the modern way. Now we have, let's say the movie is 90 minutes long. All 90 minutes are on the hard drive of my computer right now. When I'm starting to watch it, I can't watch all frames of the 90 minutes of the movie at once because my brain is incapable of processing so much information. I'm not capable. I'm a human being. So what I need to do is to watch frame by frame. Is there anything moving in the computer? Nothing is moving. Just the frames are being shown to my eyes one by one, because if more than one is being projected to my eye, my brain will go nuts. I cannot watch and process more than one frame at a time. When these frames are being projected to my eye in the right speed, my brain can create the story, the storyboard. But when, let's say I'm watching the movie, 10 minutes into watching the movie, what happened to the first 10 minutes? They were there and they're still there. Nothing changed. For the file inside the computer, nothing changed. The only change is my perception because I've seen 10 minutes already. What about the rest 80 minutes? My brain did not see that. It doesn't make a difference for the 80 left minutes. They're still on the file. The only difference is the frame that is projected to my brain. And for me, it looks there's a lot of action on the screen. Nothing happens on the screen. It's just the different frames being projected into my brain. Same story with the way we perceive reality. The past, the present, and the future are there. Our brain is just traveling through the vector, through the frames. So where is the free will? We'll come to it. וזהו כל הקושי למתחילים. This is very hard for the beginners. כי תופסים הדברים בביטוים הגשמי, because they perceive things only with their physical limited revelation, the way it reveals to our senses. בגבולים של זמן ומקום חילוף ותמורה. Under the boundaries of time and space, exchanging and transformation. Okay, so the moment I don't see something, it's not there for me anymore. The moment I don't see yesterday, it doesn't exist for me. Oh yes, it does. You know, when we experience stuff, what do? We always compare it to our previous experiences. So not just that the past is there, the past is the most dominant thing in our state of mind and consciousness, because we live mostly in the past. The problem is that most of the time we cannot see the future. We don't live in the present because we're stuck in the past because, oh, that looks like, that reminds me. What do I mean? Let it be it. It's evolution. Move on with the time. Okay, they say it. Move on with the time. אשר המחברים השתמשו בהם רק לסימנים בעלמא. The authors of the Kabbalistic books, they used those expressions of time and change, it's only a code, symbols, על שורשיהם העליונים, because they referred to the real meaning of it. ולפיכך אתאמץ לפרש כל מילה ומילה בצביונה הרוחני. Therefore, I will make the effort to interpret and explain every word according to the real spiritual meaning of it. המופשט ממקום ומזמן ותמורה. The real meaning of every word is beyond time, space, and change. ועל המעיינים and the learners מוטל לחקוק היטב בזיכרוניו. The learners must engrave in their brain, in their memory, את פירוש המילות ההן. We have to engrave the meanings, the true meaning of these words, כי אי אפשר לחזור עליהם בכל פעם, because you can't repeat all the time those. Although like a teacher is a good teacher of language, Rabbi Ashlag does repeat many times the meanings of the words. We just have to be open to remember them. Okay, so as an example, we go to one of the first words, and that is when we go, let's go back to the beginning. It says da, know, but in Hebrew, remember that the word knowing, and Adam knew Eve. What does it mean he knew Eve? She got pregnant. So knowing means connecting, really connecting all the way, communicating till you're full with that, and it impregnates you, which means you're not the same anymore because it bears fruits. So when he says da, know, means connect in a way that it's going to make a great difference in your life, like pregnancy. Da, כי טרם שנעשו הנצרים, before, the word terem, terem in Hebrew is a one word, the form of before. This is using time. But what did we say time means? It's the frames of the links of the chain. Okay? Give an example. We use it, by the way, in our everyday language. An example, for instance, is let's say we went for a celebration to visit to one of our friends. So it's a very best friend, so we came the whole family and we ate over there. The next day, everybody got food poisoning. Okay? So what do you do? What do you say? You call your friend and you say, you know, after we ate by you, all of us got food poisoning. What did you say, basically? You used the term time in order to explain cause and effect. The moment you say, we ate at your place, then we got food poisoning, you said eating at your place made us sick. Okay? Why? Because if everybody got sick on Tuesday because they ate at their friend's house at Monday, but just again, there were many other things that happened before Tuesday. You don't mention them. You mention the ones in the context A created B. Eating at your place, God was the cause. All of us getting food poisoning is the effect. Okay? But everybody brushed their teeth in the morning of Tuesday. Why didn't you say all of us brushed our teeth Tuesday morning? Probably that's a true statement, but you don't believe that brushing your teeth got you, all of us, all the family, food poisoning. Why? Usually it's impossible to get food poisoning from brushing your teeth because the toothpaste does not have the qualities, and different people have different toothpaste because people have different toothpaste to start with. People like different toothpaste and believe in different toothpaste and some other reasons. So you don't believe in that, so you don't say it. The moment you say A, we ate at your place, then we got sick. It means A was the cause of B. Your place is what caused the food poisoning. Are you telling me that you got food poisoning because eating in my place? Yeah, yes, I did. Not politically correct to say that, but you said it. Everybody understands that, correct? So when we're saying that A happened before B, we understand that A is the cause for B. And A does still exist. Why? Because when somebody has a food poisoning on Tuesday because he ate the wrong food on Monday, Monday still exists on Tuesday because Monday took over Tuesday. When somebody has a severe food poisoning, trust me, Tuesday does not exist because nothing is important when you have a food poisoning. Only Monday took over Tuesday. Everything is overruled because you had plans, places to go, people to meet. You're not doing that if you have a severe food poisoning because you're not capable. Only deal with the food. The food poisoning is ruling Tuesday. Okay? Is that clear? Wow. Okay. So that was just the introduction. The question, if anybody has a question by now.
For us to follow, we are going to, the books we should get is the Talmud HaSephirot.
Just a second. Can you repeat? I didn't hear you.
Yes, please. In order for us to follow more clearly, we should get the book Talmud HaSephirot.
Yes, the name of the book is Talmud Sephirot. If you know Hebrew, you should better have that book.
Great. Thank you very much. I love this class.
Okay,
Thank you
it's
very much.
because of today, after the corona, shipping this book from Israel is pretty tough. Try online. There's some places that have that in storage in the States. It's easier to buy it from them because from experience we try to ship those books. There's a high percentage that do not make it.
That's a shame. Okay.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, there's some people that you can trust and you can buy it from them. If you live in the States, it's more safe to buy it from people who have it in storage in the States.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank
And
you.
yes, yes, Moshe.
Yeah. My take from what you said earlier in the class is that if you don't speak Hebrew, it's best if you don't have the English version so that you don't get confused about the translations. I studied with the B'nai Baruch group for a couple of years, and they do publish a copy of the Ashlag book. So I guess that's the question.
English translation?
Yeah, they have an English translation online of Rabbi Ashlag's book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As I said, it's nice to have, you can't trust it. It's nice to have, or in order to have a general idea. But that's why you need to study from the Hebrew text, and we will learn one concept at a time. So it's basically learning a language. Even if you speak Hebrew fluently, your understanding of these words is, you don't understand the words. You use them by daily use, you don't use them as, okay, so for you, for both, if you speak Hebrew, if you don't speak Hebrew, it doesn't matter. Those words are not, you don't know the context and you don't know the language. It's learning a new language, okay? So if you as an English speaker, it will be easier for you to have the translation in front of you. Get this translation, but don't be too serious about translation because translations are a recommendation. You cannot translate one-on-one Hebrew, especially this language, Kabbalistic Hebrew to English. Impossible. I'm teaching that for so many years. You have to learn the terms in Hebrew. Otherwise, it becomes a joke. After a while, you start to speak Kabbalah in English words, you sound like you're a comedian. Okay, it's embarrassing how funny it is. Okay, so you have to use the Hebrew terms.
Is the Baal Hasulam?
What?
The Baal Hasulam, is that the one?
Yeah, Rabbi Ashlag is now something amazing. The scholars, university scholars, especially Gershon Sholem, said for many years that there's no connection between the teachings of the Arizal and the Zohar. Rabbi Ashlag, in his commentary on the Arizal and on the Zohar, proved it's the same teaching exactly. No contradiction at all. Okay, and nobody ever did that work in such a greatness. And whoever does not acknowledge that, it's about his limitation, not about showing about his genius, how genius he is. Okay, so this is Baal Sulam. Many times in Jewish history, a great sage is being called after the name of his book. Sulam is his commentary, Rabbi Ashlag's commentary over the Zohar, but his commentary over Rabbi Isaac Lurie is also great it's amazing by itself. Okay, so that's Rabbi Ashlag. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and hopefully you repeat and study, and we'll move forward with this study and get great results and great change in our lives. Thank you so much.